Without any type of business background and a family to feed and kids to feed, I ran the most popular and successful escort services that Chicago has ever seen and probably ever will see.
The saga of Dolly Fisher, single working mom, begins here in Chicago during the mid-70s. Her first job landed her on Rush Street, notorious for its dive bars and sex shops.
I was working in a strip joint by the name of the Candy Store on Rush Street, hustling drinks. I was 39 years old at the time, and a gentleman came in there. He said, "I'm looking for a girl who works for an escort service." And at that point, I was shocked. I didn't know what he was talking about, and I said, "What is an escort service?"
It didn't take her long to find out. Within months, she placed an ad for Fantasy Unlimited.
I knew that my children were getting older. They were becoming more expensive. I needed to make a lot of more money than what I was making. So I decided to take on the life of becoming a madam so that I could support my children the way I wanted to. This is the first building that housed Fantasy Unlimited. This was my first office that I opened up, my very first escort service in 1981, February 14th, Valentine's Day. My first call when we plugged the phones in about 12:15, I answered the phone. "Good evening, this is Fantasy, can I help you?" First question the guy says to me is, "What is an escort service?" And I said, "I'm not sure, but we're going to try and figure it out together." The ladies that I hired for my escort agency all had to be extremely classy. If they weren't classy, I made them classy. We turned them into something. If they were uneducated, we educated them to a degree. We put them through a whole week to 10 days of education. Everything that I described to you is true, but this was certainly not a finishing school, and I didn't have all angels. I had Oriental girls and white girls and Spanish girls and black girls and big busted, small busted, redheads, blondes, brunettes. Every gentleman has a different idea of what is considered beautiful. My children worked for me. One child worked for me for 2 months, and she got fired. She didn't do her job properly. She worked on the phones as a phone operator. The other child worked for me for about 2 years, and she was my bookkeeper. The daily work in my business, believe it or not, was extremely exciting and extremely different. A gentleman would call the service, he would question him, and then we would decide on a lady for him and would dial the lady's home. If she wasn't home, I would dial her pager. If she didn't drive, the chauffeur took her. Now, the lady arrives at the hotel. She'll walk in and say, "Hi, Jerry. I just hate to do this, but could you just show me your driver's license?" At this point, I would expect her, because he is a new client, to go around this entire hotel room. She'd pull the drawers open. Now we are looking for guns. She would do a check on the bathroom. Another mandatory thing was pull the shower curtain, look behind there and see if there's another person in the room. Gentlemen who used our service were very, very classy men. The ages were interesting. They ran from ages 19 to about 92. They were manufacturers. They were educated men, lawyers, doctors, judges, you name it, they were there. The fact that priests, rabbis, ministers, people of the cloth of all denominations used our service, I was shocked, and very little shocks me.
Dolly was an equal opportunity pleasure merchant. One of her services catered to the lesbian trade.
This is the building that housed our only women's service, for women only, the only one in Chicago.
Dolly ran a tight ship. If the escorts didn't follow her rules, they were fined.
I was extremely concerned about the health situation. If you don't run a healthy agency and a healthy escort business, prostitution business, you won't have a business. So therefore, health was top priority to me. I sent the girls to the doctor once a week. This was mandatory. If they didn't go, the fine was $240.
Dolly's business got so big so fast, the mob moved in and made her a deal she couldn't refuse.
A man that I had worked for in a strip joint had called me up and had said to me, "Dolly, I have something really good for you. why don't you come and meet me at this restaurant, and I want to talk to you. Well, when I reached the man over at the restaurant, he was sitting there with another man who was very dark with big black eyes. The dark man looked at me and said, "Your first partner is gone, and Frank is in." And I looked at him and I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "You heard me. You are invading our territory."
Dolly Fisher's ultimate fantasy of money, excitement, and classy women was just that, a fantasy, and it all came to an end.
I was the lead prosecutor in the federal case in which Dolly Fisher was prosecuted and convicted for running an illegal prostitution business in a RICO case.
My downfall was using credit cards. I should have never have used them. The credit card company belonged to the FBI, who took 20% from me, who was also getting as rich as I was, probably richer, because not only did they take it from me, they took it from every club, every strip joint in the city of Chicago.
We prosecuted her, we convicted her, we put her in jail, we took away all her money, we forfeited her house, we prosecuted her children.
The only regret I have about entering this business and becoming a madam was bringing my children into it, because the FBI also came after my children.
Dolly had no intention of hurting her family. To her, they were just answering the phone.
To save her children, Dolly turned federal informant 24 hours before her trial was to begin. She served 2 years at a federal minimum security prison.
When I was a little girl, I wanted to get married, I wanted to have children, I wanted to have a husband, and possibly the white picket fence.
She's just an ordinary human being, although she chose to make her living in a criminal way.
Stretch your dollar as much as you can. Get the most out of it. If you're going to work in it, work hard and get that money, honey.